Psychology in Seattle.
So, Berto, have you heard of Anna Delvey, the con artist from New York City?
I have. Actually, I had heard about her before, and then I forgot about her. And then you brought her up, and I was like, what? Then I looked it up. I'm like, all right, this gal.
So a lot of listeners, patrons, have been asking us to talk about Anna. I think particularly YouTube listeners are wanting us to talk about Anna because she is quite a YouTube internet sensation these days. So I thought we would get into it. What do you say?
Let's do it.
This is the Psychology in Seattle podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist, a professor, and someone who probably would be conned because I'm not very suspicious of people. Who are you, Berto?
My name is Humberto Castañeda, and I'm an ex-member of the New York Glitterati.
So that's a thing, glitterati?
Of course.
Did you just make that up?
No, dude. If you're not in it, though, it's kind of like Fight Club.
So, because that's a cool word. If that isn't a word, that should be a word.
It's totally a word.
Oh, it is a word.
Yeah.
So other people have said it.
I'm sure.
People are reacting to her, Anna Delvey, the same way they reacted to Elizabeth Holmes from Theranos,
Right.
and Billy McFarland from the Fire Festival. And since you and I have done some mini deep dives on both Elizabeth Holmes and Billy McFarland, I think that's why people are like, you got to do Anna Delvey to, the trio of recent con artists. So Anna as a person, just as like her media presence, the pictures of her, videos of her, interviews of her, how does she come across to you? Because I think that's a major component of why she is interesting to the internet.
So if I hadn't known the backstory, and if I were just seeing an out of context conversation with her, or like let's say I met her at a bar somewhere, I certainly would not automatically imagine that she's like some billionaire. But I would imagine like, oh, okay, she likes being in the scene, like she likes cool things or whatever. And I don't know that I would immediately know, oh, wait, something's wrong with her.
How do you think she comes across to the average American when they look at her and they see her walk into a place?
Well, this is what I'm saying is like, as for example, in contrast to Elizabeth Holmes, right? Like, there's something odd about her right off the bat, Holmes, Whereas in this case, I think she looks sort of like a normal person,
young woman,
a normal young woman,
fashionable,
yeah.
So if you haven't seen pictures of Anna Delvey, I recommend looking up because I think that it's an important part of the story. I think similar to Elizabeth Holmes. Obviously, our society is obsessed with the way women look, but also Elizabeth Holmes and Anna Delvey both have particular attractive looks to them, right?
Right, but I would say like Anna Delvey doesn't look like, I hate to say this, but I don't imagine she'd be like the hottest one at the party. She's just there. She's good looking. She's nice.
But compared to like business people in a boardroom.
Sure. It's more a little,
if you walked into a boardroom and you saw her, that would be something different, right?
Yeah, but honestly, a lot of the pictures she's in, the girl next to her is usually hotter. But there is a difference with Elizabeth Holmes, which is like, she also doesn't wear weird clothes. I'm saying Elizabeth does. She wears like the Steve Jobs looking kind of clothing, and she's got that really intense no blink stare and things like that. You don't get that from this gal.
Oh, okay.
Anna. You get like she's wearing the kind of clothes you would expect her to be wearing out in the scene.
Well, but particularly fashionable.
Sure. But like if you're in that scene, that's what you wear.
Yeah.
It wouldn't stand out. It wouldn't be like, what the hell is she doing? You know?
But if she were walking through the mall, or in Seattle in particular, or walked into a restaurant in Seattle, I think she would stick out in terms of her fashion, not in terms of the way she looks per se, but I think she dresses particularly fashionable. Now, if you're on Capitol Hill, she probably blends in more, anyway. So she comes across as what I would call fashionable, and she comes across as a petite schoolgirl. Like, I hate to put it in this context, but if she were in Japanese anime or something. Like she would fit well in a Japanese anime cartoon. It would be pretty easy to transport her, if you know what I'm saying.
Sure.
That sort of cute girl, schoolgirl, girl next door kind of
Sure.
look in anime that they have a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So she has a very kind of cutesy look to her. I think that's a part of it because when we'll get into this, culture has a lot to do with why we're even paying attention to this woman. Because it's not like she's the only con artist of 2019. There are millions of con artists. So why is the internet so obsessed with this particular con artist? You know. Anyway, so her story, just in a nutshell, for people who don't know, Anna Delvey is a con artist. She weaseled her way into the rich people scene in Manhattan. Manhattan, right?
Yep.
And she tricked banks and fancy hotels and rich people into thinking she was rich and into giving her money. And now she's going to prison. She's in prison, but not for long. She, something like 4 years or something, and then she might be eligible for release. And she's got a lot of years. She's in her 20s, so she's got a lot of years left for newsworthy stories to happen. You know, I don't like with Elizabeth Holmes and Bill and McFarlane. We're probably going to hear more about them in the future, right? And so this story is so compelling to the internet that did you know they're going to make TV shows and documentaries that
I heard they're working on maybe a Netflix thing, right?
Right. So there's Jennifer Lawrence and Margot Robbie. Margot Robbie or Robbie?
I never know, but
I think it's Robbie. Both of them are reportedly interested in playing her because they look vaguely like her.
Oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. This is what I'm talking about. Appropriation from one culture to the next. She should be Russian. Whoever plays her should be Russian.
Shonda Rhimes acquired the rights to do a Netflix series, but an actual TV series. I mean, a series about Anna Delvey. Does that surprise you at all?
That does surprise me.
Because how are you going to... One, to me, I don't understand how you're going to make one movie out of it.
Yeah, it seems like a 45-minute documentary.
Yeah, a documentary I could get. But like a drama,
right?
It doesn't, because to me, it can't be that interesting of a drama. Now, the one thing I would say is that if they make it into a series, I think it's possible to make it interesting if they didn't make it about Anna Delvey, but made it about, did you read that article? I think it was in the Times, or it was a very long article where they basically focused on this one woman who worked at a hotel. Did you read that article?
I don't think so.
It's really long, detailed. So there's one woman who worked at a hotel who knew Anna Delvey pretty well as she was conning people and observed it firsthand, and actually became her friend and would go to dinner with her and blah, blah, blah. And from that angle, it's kind of interesting because...
They should make it about her and her experiences.
Right. It's sort of like My Friend Dahmer.
Right.
Is mostly about a guy who knew Dahmer. Right. And observed Dahmer. And so I think that angle could be kind of interesting, but I don't know. Lena Dunham is also working on a project about Anna Delvey. Yeah. HBO is reportedly also in the works of making a show about her.
I'm kind of disgusted now.
Yeah, I think, to me, once we get into this, I don't even understand why people want us to talk about it personally.
Right.
I mean, not to shoot ourselves in the foot at the beginning of this episode, but again, most of what I'm going to be talking about is why we are so interested. I'm interested, honestly. It's interesting.
But I'm interested in how it's possible that so many people fall for these things all the time.
That, and why is it just so interesting to us? Because... I didn't like Wolf of Wall Street very much, which was a Scorsese movie, Leonardo DiCaprio, about a real story about this guy in the 80s, 90s that scammed a bunch of people, the FBI, blah, blah. And that movie, I didn't like either.
I really did enjoy that movie, but, I read the book and, I think that...
But that's a similar thing,
it's
right?
It's glorifying the same kind of...
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, so you have a greedy bastard who figured out a way to bastardly greed and then managed to become rich. Yeah. And then, oh, guess what? He spends his money in extravagant ways.
Right.
Drugs, prostitution, boats, blah, blah, blah. And then he gets caught. Yeah. To me, I'm just like, why is that interesting? Like, it's a tragedy. It's not even interesting on a tragic level to me. It's just sad.
Yeah, totally. It's just part of it is that on the way up, things look hilarious and fun, right?
But to me, I have worked with clients on various stages of that. Obviously, not like that fantastic of a story like Wolf of Wall Street, but stories like that. And I suppose I've had many versions of it myself, just in terms of like, I'm living large, and then the next day, you're hungover, So when I'm watching stuff like that, all I can think is, okay, I know this is played for laughs, but all I see is like when Leonardo DiCaprio and Jonah Hill are super drugged up on barbiturates, I think they're taking. And Leonardo DiCaprio can't get into his car. He's like crawling. And everyone in theater is cracking up. And all I can think of is that is a very sad man. If you walked up on that scene and actually saw that man that drugged up trying to get into his car, it would not be funny.
Right.
It's not funny. Right. And then you see him actually get in the car and drive, you would not, I hope, be laughing at that. You would be mortified. In the theater, people were cracking up. And all I could think of was like, it's like watching a rape scene and thinking it's funny. There's nothing funny about a man who is so sad and so traumatized or whatever that he feels like he has to use that amount of drugs. And the drugs don't solve your problems.
So I definitely agree existentially with you. But it is so common. Like, take the movie Hangover, right? Like, what's that movie about? This group of people for a bachelor party
get too drunk.
And they get so drunk that they all black out completely. Hours and hours and hours of activities.
Can you imagine how hungover you would be the next day?
Oh my gosh.
Those guys wouldn't have been able to function the next day.
But then, people that went to see that movie were like, oh my God, it's hilarious. They can't remember. They grabbed the lion and did this and that. And it's so funny.
Yeah, I think it's because I've worked so closely with addiction that when I can't watch things like that and think it's funny at all. Because it's not funny. And it's, I think, in our culture, we just decided a long time ago that drugs are funny. Drugs are not funny. Drugs are a thing, but being so wasted is sad. I mean, everyone out there, just think of the person you've seen who was so drunk, like just the drunkest you've ever seen them. Is it funny? No, it's sad.
I think to people it is, though. And I know what you're saying, and of course, not only is it sad
the first
in those
two
moments,
times,
but it certainly leads down very, very sad paths.
Right. Maybe the first couple times someone did that, but the Wolf of Wall Street guy, this is a pattern that he was in for months.
Right.
And I guess that's the other thing is like I can see past the sheen of the story and say, oh, behind that scene are times when he's puking in the toilet. And
so imagine that movie, right? That one would stop being funny, right? They show you that first scene and you're probably laughing. Oh, then the next scene they show you, he's supposed to make a meeting and he's not because he's like puking. And then the next meeting he's falling down the stairs still like, then pretty soon you're like, oh man.
Right.
Oh geez.
So getting back to Anna Delvey, which again, I kind of get why it's interesting, but I also am just kind of boggled. We'll see, I guess we'll see what happens when the TV productions come up. But anyway, so she's born 1991. She's about 28 right now. She's born in Russia. Her real name was Anna Sorokin. Her father was an executive for a bit, but then became a business owner, I think of an HVAC company. She said she wasn't very close to her parents.
Right.
Her classmates remember her as being quiet, whatever that means. So I wish journalists would look into more of her childhood and let me know, because I couldn't find hardly anything about her childhood, because that's always what is interesting to me in terms of why someone would be this way. But anyway, as a teenager, she moved. Her family moved to Germany, I think for work. 2010, so this is just 9 years ago. She's 19 years old, and she moved to Paris to pursue a fashion degree. And she was still financially dependent on her parents, which, pretty normal kind of Western situation. 2013, age 22, she moves to New York for more fashion work. So she goes from Russia to Germany. As soon as she's adult, she goes to Paris, and then she goes to New York. So at this point, she's really just trying to make it in the fashion industry. And she, at some point, she quits her entry-level job in fashion. So she's 22 years old, 23, 24 years old. And she's like, I don't want to work in this. Who knows why she made that choice. So she doesn't have any money, but she's still dependent on her parents. Her parents are still sending her money for rent and stuff to live in Manhattan, by the way.
So she's not poor.
Right. So she has, her parents are giving her a lot of money to just kind of pursue, but it's not unusual for that.
But we're talking about like now she's like 23 or something.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not that strange.
I mean, I was left to mostly my own devices at the age of 18, minus some financial assistance with the tuition, but not all of it.
Yeah. And, when you walk to school, it was uphill both ways, that kind of thing. And for kids today, middle-class kids today, especially because people are more wealthy these days and people have less kids, fewer kids, that I have found that that stage of dependency on parents is extended longer than it was in our day. And for us, it was longer than it was for people 20, 30 years prior to that.
This is dumb, man. When I have kids, I'm going to have them working from because you can work at like 15, right?
Yeah.
Be like, okay, you owe me rent. You owe me money starting this week. If you can't, it'll be like a mob type thing. If you can't make your weekly payments, we're going to have some goons come and take you.
Good luck with that. So,
can you imagine that? This is the greatest pyramid scheme. Like, the more kids you have, the more money you can make.
Well, you and Anna Delvey would get along. So, this is when her con artistry begins. Now, we don't know if prior to this moment she was dabbling in being a con artist.
Right.
But we definitely know this is when she was starting to do con artist things. Now, I don't know the progression. I'm sure in the future the details will be more clear, so forgive me if I get some of the details wrong. So at some point, she tricks the bank into giving her a $100,000 business loan. She faked some bank statements to get loans. She faked that she had 60 million pounds in a bank account in Europe somewhere.
Yeah.
And based on that, she was able to get a $100,000 loan.
How did was this in the Middle Ages where there were no electronic means of communication with other countries?
Yeah, it's bizarre. And I'd really love to know the story from the bank person who actually, because she didn't go to a loan shark. She didn't go to an uncle. No. She went to an institution of finance that is supposed to know, one, don't just hand out money, especially an amount like $100,000. Right. Two, you're right. With today's financial digital market, I'm sure it's just a click away to find out if something's legit. I mean, she just doctored these documents.
Right. Now, I will say, what year was this?
This was 5 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, 5 years ago.
Well, I don't know, 6.
Well, I was asking because there was a period of time around 2007, but that's a long time ago, where they were handing loans, unsecured loans, pretty easily. And I got one of those too.
Right. So this is just, a short time after the loan scares of 2008.
So actually, it would have been even harder to get a loan.
Right. Exactly. So it's bizarre. I'd love to know the story of that. And I wonder if it's just a glitch in this person or this bank system, or if Anna Delvey had something to do with that, like blinking her eyes a lot or something. I don't know.
Weird.
Now, instead of spending this money wisely, so at this point, she's trying to actually get a business going.
Oh, so this was a fashion business?
Right. So she wanted to start this private. I don't really understand it. I'm guessing to people who understand this sort of business, they understand it. But I actually don't really get it unless it's kind of a weird thing that no one does. But anyway, she wanted to start this thing called the Anna Delvey Foundation.
Okay.
So a foundation named after her. So it's like Donald Trump, right? She's calling herself she wants to call this mall essentially after herself. She doesn't want to call it anything else. She wants to call it ADF, Anna Delvey Foundation. So apparently, I heard
it's a mall,
right? So I don't really get it. It was a building that she was trying to secure in Manhattan, and she wanted to be this super exclusive, expensive art, restaurant, bar, dance club complex.
You just need $100,000 for that, obviously.
Well, what she needed was $25 million.
Right.
But she needed a little bit of money, according to her, to kind of get things going, which is normal.
Yeah, but I mean, this is fascinating. Obviously, it's a gap in my knowledge. You go to the bank and like, hey, I need a loan for this business I'm starting. Okay, what's the business? It's this mall where it's going to be fashion. It's going to be, oh, that's going to cost a lot of money. Yeah, like $25 million. Okay, so how much, you need $25 million for us? No, I just need $100,000.
Well, no.
What's the $100,000 for?
I think she actually did have some kind of logical explanation.
She must have.
Yeah.
It worked.
Like she needed $100,000 to get the business kind of, just a little bit going. Anyway, the point is what her big idea was. She wanted to start this thing, and I don't really understand it. Like it's some kind of exclusive art installation, like art gallery thing, and it has restaurants and bars and all these other kind. And it's supposed to be exclusive, so it wasn't supposed to be just for anybody. No. It was for like the elite people,
which is great because so as soon as imagine you're at the bar late night, DJ's playing. You're like, oh, meet my friend Anna. Oh, hi Anna, what's up? Oh, not much. What are you up to these days? Oh, I'm just I'm working on this foundation thing. What foundation? Oh, it's going to be this exclusive, blah, 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 blah. Oh my God, that sounds amazing. I totally want to be a part of that. What do you do? Oh, I run this huge model thing over here, whatever. Like immediately people would just get attracted to this nonsense.
Right. So that's another potential reason as to why she would do it. Now, this is very similar to the Billy McFarland thing. Right. So the Billy McFarland thing, again, I think in Manhattan.
Oh, in fact, he came across her. She apparently had fooled him too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Wait, he's the Fire Festival.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, so Billy McFarland, his first venture, and it was successful because
the black cards.
was this black card thing that he started in Manhattan where you spent hundreds of dollars, I think, for the card. And then it gave you exclusive access to these different perks. Like there would be black card parties and black card restaurant discounts and stuff.
Super exclusive.
Yeah, it was very exclusive. And I find this whole culture to be one of the grossest things.
we talked about it. How it's like, oh yeah, man, you gotta be. It's like going to the club and like, are you on the list?
Right.
If you're not on the list, you gotta wait in that gross plebe line out there.
Yeah, we talked about that. You and I, we'll just summarize what we talked about with the Fire Festival thing. We had friends who were really into that kind of culture in Seattle where there was definitely in their minds a tier system of the places that were cooler. Yeah. And even within a dance club, there were sections of the dance club that were cooler than the other sections. Right. And there was always this sense of like, okay, I have a hookup. I know how to get us into this thing. Right. And you and I would just be like, who cares?
I don't care.
And we'd go along because they seemed really interested in getting in the VIP room.
Right. Especially, do you remember, was it at the, I forget but when you go upstairs and the VIP area is like cordoned off by a little rope.
At Trinity.
Yeah, Trinity. But like, the difference between in VIP, out of VIP, was just this thin little rope.
Well, no. So there were two things. Well, could you go upstairs?
Maybe the first level is going upstairs, and then upstairs there was a second level.
There was a second level, right? And it was just a rope. Right.
But to be fair, like going upstairs, first of all, two things. So sure, you can kind of see from behind where the DJ area is.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm cool. If you don't get a great view, you certainly don't get a great view of the show downstairs.
Yeah.
And there's a very, very tiny small dance area there.
Yeah.
And there's just this tiny bar with a fraction of the stuff they have at the other one. And then the VIP area is just in there, the VVIP area, but then just a little rope. And you're like, oh, hey, you're in the VVIP?
Yeah.
Oh my God, because I'm right next to you.
Yeah, there's something about that culture or that society or that vibe that it just kind of lends itself to that, because it's not like when you go to the grocery store there's a VIP section but
there's first class in airplanes.
Yeah, but even with first class in airplanes you got to pay for it.
Yeah.
But there's something about dance clubs and maybe even art too where there's always this notion that well, if you're where everyone else is, you're not where the cool people are.
Right.
And those same people walk into the same grocery store. But, you know, I don't know if I talked about this last time, but I've noticed this because there's a lot of really rich people in Seattle. And now, when I say really rich people, what I mean is that they talk like really rich people, whether or not they're rich or not. Sure. Actually, that's kind of a thing.
And there are very wealthy people in Seattle.
Yeah. But I bet you anything, the very rich people don't actually do this. It's like aspiring rich people or rich culturally people. But anyway, there's a way that they talk about things that it's not horrible. I'm not going to denigrate it, but it's particular. Yeah. And tell me if you've noticed this, where because I know you don't do this, where they talk about hookups a lot. They talk about like,
oh, right.
You know, they'll be like, so, you know, I was shopping for a car, and they'll just be talking about like a Toyota or something. Yeah. But they'll be like, and you know, I have a friend of a friend who knows someone, and I got a sweet deal on it. And we're talking about deals that are in the tens of thousands of dollars.
Sure.
We're not talking about like clipping a coupon. They would never clip a coupon at the grocery store.
Right.
But this kind of, I'm not really describing it well. Like another example would be, I know a guy who can get us the sweetest salmon fishing trip in the Puget Sound, and they don't like fishing, but they know
we can get this hookup.
But we can get this hookup.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Did you notice that?
Oh, I've definitely noticed that. I mean,
but you and I don't do that.
I mean, first of all, I'm terrible at finding deals. Second, I guess I don't look out for them necessarily. But
I think it's part of that culture of there's always something better than what the regular people are doing. And unless you have an eye on that and know the right people, you're going to miss out.
Oh, absolutely. Well, like, for example, when boating season comes around, right? Like, I remember this year after year. There were these gals that we would see at the clubs and things, and inevitably one of them would befriend some dude with some crazy yacht. And it's like, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, my gosh. Such and such introduced me to such and such, and so we get to go on his like crazy yacht. It's like, oh my gosh, that's crazy, you know. And then the pictures come up, and it's like, but that's the thing. It's like, the cool thing is like, whose yacht could I get on this summer? You know?
I think I know exactly who you're talking about, actually, because I saw the pictures too. And because yachts have cultural power,
right?
But it's just a goddamn thing that's floating on the water. And if you've ever been on a yacht or a nice boat, there's nothing particularly special about it. Like, you could walk down to a public dock and have virtually the same experience.
So to be clear, we're not talking about the difference between, you know, most of us live in some encampment that's really impoverished and we don't have access to really clean water and stuff. And then, you know, a few of these people get the hookup, and they get to go to where they can drink clean water and eat full, you know, meals. It's like, okay, well, we would all want that, you know. We're talking about like we all live perfectly comfortable lives with way more riches than almost anyone else in this world. And we got one little more bonus because we knew someone, you know.
Yeah, it'd be like if someone said, "I have the hookup on a very fashionable iPhone case."
Exactly.
Exactly. And it's like everyone has access to millions of iPhone cases, but this person has a hookup to a special kind of iPhone case. It doesn't have any better functionality. No,
it's just designer.
It's just designer or something. Or maybe it's made out of some special material but it's not actually useful. And that's this mentality that I'm pretty sure when I heard the story of Anna Delvey, that was what I heard. That her being of that culture and entering that culture and appealing to that culture. And you're right. At a party, if she talks about starting this mall in Manhattan and she gives this impression at the very least that she's a trust fund kid and she's actually gonna get it going, that's a pretty interesting story.
Oh, yeah.
And Anna Delvey not being a wealthy person, not being a trust fund kid, not being famous, just being a regular immigrant, gives her this instant zhuzh that gives her people are interested. They want to talk to her.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of extra things that seem believable, probably. I don't know if she probably has an accent. Have you heard her? Does she have an accent?
Yeah, she has an accent.
Yeah, so that coupled with, we've heard about all these Russian billionaires, right? And so it's a little bit of this. Although, where did she say she was from? What was her backstory?
She said she was from Germany.
From Germany. Well, European billionaires are a dime a dozen. And then she's got an accent. And then she's doing this thing that now I want to be a part of, because if it's as halfway as cool as she says it's going to be, I'll be damned if I'm left out of that, because I want to be in on the in crowd.
Well, and we'll get into more of what really kind of zhuzhed up her life, but we'll do it after the break. What do you say?
Yep.
All right, we're back from the break. So if a con artist were to convince people to become a patron of the podcast and they were really interested in the VIP culture, what would they do, Berto?
Well, we'll get to that in a minute, but first I wanted to say, so I just returned from Australia, and I got to tell you, I made some amazing connections there. This was total random luck, but a couple of really wealthy investors.
This is the part of the glitterati thing?
The glitterati in Australia. A couple of really wealthy investors. They took me out on this beautiful 60-foot yacht. We went shark fishing and stuff. And the thing is, they heard our podcast, and they're willing, they're so enamored of this idea of patrons. They're willing to give each one of our patrons, thousands of dollars back for their investment. But the key is, we have to hit 3,000 patrons, and then every one of the patrons is going to get these Australian riches. I don't even know if it'll be cash. It'll be diamonds. What does Australia have? Rubies? These people own Australia.
Shrimp.
Kangaroos. So, but that's the key. So do it now. Get to the, and by the way, after the 3,000, they'll never do this again.
Yeah.
You got to get in on the ground floor of this thing.
So become a patron of the podcast to become a victim of Humberto's scam scene. There can be no higher honor, really. So she starts handing out crisp $100 tips to everybody that she works with.
Right. And so everyone's like, well, that proves a lot.
Right.
Who tips $100?
Right. $100 to the bellboy,
Right.
$100 to the waitress, $100 to the Uber driver, just crisp $100 bills to everybody.
Okay. So quick side story. When I was starting in my glitterati job, I wanted to feel like I was really wealthy. And so this was back in 2000, in the year 2000. In the year 2000. Oh my gosh. So anyways, I'm sitting there and we go to a strip club with some of the coworkers. And I want to feel like I'm rolling in the dough. So I start tipping $20 tips left and right. And there was this one random Wednesday where I blew through $1,500. $1,500.
And to give you context, in Washington State, you can't drink at these places.
No, there was no alcohol involved.
So you're not...
It was soda water. And these weren't, by the way, this wasn't lap dances, because we were all together, we were watching, I was just tipping the waitress, because I'm rich, you know how rich I am, I'm just rich. And then this was at a time where I probably made, I had most 60K a year or something, and all of it was accounted for every paycheck, living paycheck to paycheck. And I'm $1,500. Yeah, it wasn't very real. But it was that desire, because me being, I guess, coming from not poverty, but not having any money in Colombia, and feeling now I have money, I wanted to believe I'm one of these powerful, rich people out there.
Would you have been the same if you had stayed in Colombia and had a relative higher or mid-level income at that age? What I'm asking is being in America, with all the American dream and the culture that comes with being in America, did that affect your motivation to do that?
Yes, but you got to be aware that there is a large subculture, a small but important subculture of the wealthier elite in Colombia,
yeah.
And they're just as or more extravagant.
But I mean, to you, because I wonder for Anna Delvey,
yeah,
if she's well, I've been watching American TV. I've been paying attention to American famous people my whole life. I'm now in Manhattan, in the center of the cultural world, and I need, if I can't make it here, I can't make it anywhere. I gotta impress these people. I gotta rise to the occasion. Whereas if she stayed in Germany, she would have been like, well, I don't need to do that much excess. I just wonder if that's a factor.
It could be. There's also, when I was going to school in Colombia, it was a private school, and a lot of the families, I'd probably say 80% of the families, had a lot of money. And I always felt left out in that sense because, when there were field trips that you had to bring money, you have to bring money for the field trip. I knew that I didn't have the money. Now, eventually, what would usually happen is my grandma would find out because my cousin was going to the same school. And then she would know that, my grandma from my mom's side, and she would know that I didn't have the money. So the money would magically manifest itself.
So this experience that was not pleasant for you might have motivated you to overcompensate.
Right. Oh, now who's got no money?
Yeah. So similar to that, handing out $100 tips while she can't really afford it but she's got $100,000 in the bank.
But it's not hers. It's a loan. Yeah. No, I can so relate to that.
She starts staying at expensive hotels, $400 plus a night. When they demand money from her, she would make excuses, here's another credit card, or it's coming. And because she's handing out $100 tips, they're like, well,
she's got it.
She's got to be good for it.
Yeah.
And they just kind of let her, and when shit really hit the fan, then she would just go to another hotel. And she wore expensive clothes, designer clothes. She went to very expensive restaurants in the hotel she was staying at. And she would just say, I'll just charge
it to the room.
Yeah. She hired private jets a number of times. Do you know how much it costs?
Oh my God.
Just for herself, not as part of like a 10-person private jet share, it's like just for herself for random trips that she was going on.
Oh my God.
How much do you think it costs to rent a private jet?
Rent a private jet, like $20,000 or something.
Yeah, like $35,000.
Holy crap.
$35,000 for a minor trip. Now, the only reason why you would do that is if you were trying to impress.
Yeah.
I mean, major celebrities don't do that.
Right.
People who actually have the money don't do that.
I mean, when people like that splurge, it's because they bought the first class ticket.
Right. There are rich people who actually don't get first class because they're like, it's a little expensive.
Yeah.
But super rich people, first class is fine. Why do you need a private jet?
Oh my God.
You've got to be beyond rich to just be like, private jet everywhere I go.
It's insane.
So again, it's not just $100 tips.
Man.
It's not just $400 a night hotel. It's $35,000 private jet for no reason other than she wants to impress people.
Yeah.
Because if you really want to impress people, in fact, there was talk in this one article that this one observing woman of her life was like, people were talking about, I think she arrived on a private jet. Like if you arrive on a private jet, that if you hand out
confirms a lot.
Yeah, if you hand out $100 tips, that's one level of rumor that will go around a party.
Yeah.
But if you arrive in a private jet, you're going to be like, see that woman over there?
Oh.
She came here in a private jet.
Can you imagine if I had arrived in a private jet to the strip club?
Well, you'd be landing on Lake City Way. So she lied about her father being super rich, or she gave the impression anyway. She told people she would finance their projects, like movies, just as a favor to them. She started hanging out with C-level celebrities like Macaulay Culkin.
By the way, I did that too, the movie thing. I mean, I've talked about it before, I think. I invested money in someone's movie idea, like with no collateral, nothing, just like, I'm working on this movie. Really? Yeah, I'm looking for investors. Really? Well, I'm an investor.
So it's interesting. I didn't realize this, but you're a shade off of Anna Delvey.
There is one important difference.
You're not a con artist.
Well, I definitely am not a con artist, but there's something else which is really weird. Her need, it really does seem like she was trying to explicitly have other people see her in a certain light, right?
Well, that's what we don't really know.
Okay,
So
I guess we might not.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the psychology of Anna Delvey, but that's one angle that certainly could be true. And that she's really trying to trick people. The other possibility that I think is just as viable is that she was like you, but really not thinking straight about the whole thing, or more deluded,
or less straight.
or what I say. She was more deluded about her chances, because it's possible that she actually believed in her heart that she was going to make a lot of money given her plan to create this Anna Delvey Foundation.
There's definitely a thread in which these are not alike, because my motivation was certainly, if I wear these fancy clothes and if I spend this kind of money and if I tell this person I can invest in their movie, that now proves to me and to everyone else that I'm not this poor person. Oh, look, I do have money. Ha ha, who's laughing now? And of course, it wasn't ever that explicit. And a lot of it in my head was like, well, I would somehow convince myself that I actually totally had the money and I was doing a favor. I'm like, oh, I can invest. And then, of course, I was thinking, oh, imagine if the movie does great. I'll be like this grandiose investor. My next production will be with Spielberg,
Right. So, yeah. So, similar. So that's, I think, one possibility. The other possibility is she's an absolute con artist, and we'll get into her psychology in a bit. But anyway, she started hanging out with some famous people like Macaulay Culkin and Martin Shkreli, by the way.
Which one's that one?
So he's the pharma bro.
Oh, right. The one that got in trouble for overcharging massively.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I find to be just hilarious. So Martin Shkreli and Anna Delvey and Billy McFarlane
they're all in the same circle,
hanging out together. And those are the people we know about.
Right.
Like, how many others in that circle?
It's a viper's nest over there.
Yeah. She started claiming she had meetings with other famous people like Bill Gates, even though that doesn't seem likely. And she, of course, went to all the best parties.
Yeah.
But then the money ran out pretty quickly. I think this whole thing lasted maybe a year. Like,
how could it even,
right. Like 2016, her flame burned bright and short. So the money ran out, and so that $100,000, I'm guessing, ran out, and her money from her parents wasn't enough. And she started asking people if they would start paying for things. So before, she paid for everything. Oh, and I didn't mention this. They would go on trips to like Europe, like Ibiza and Italy.
Oh my gosh!
And really fancy
and it's always on her.
Right. She would pay for everything, and it's just like the other question I have is her IQ. So was she a genius because she was able to trick all these people for a short amount of time, or was she really not very smart?
Yeah.
And accidentally tricked the bank in a way that the bank shouldn't have been able to be tricked. Anyway, so when her money runs out, she goes on this kind of infamous trip to Africa, I think Morocco. And she asked a bunch of people, you want to go on a trip? We're going on a fancy trip. We're going to go to Morocco.
This is when she's out of money already?
Basically. Or she's about to
be.
I mean, she should have known she's close. She rents a private villa that has a butler, like round the clock. Guess how much money a night? How many dollars a night?
Oh, I don't know, like a whole villa?
Yeah.
$25,000 a night.
No, it's $7,000. But
$7,000 a night.
$7,000. Okay. When I go to a hotel and I see a price like that's over $125, given the way that, because in my head, that's because I'm still on like 1993, like inflation prices. Like when I go to McDonald's or a fast food restaurant and I order food for two people and it's $15, I'm always like, what? Like it's two people. That should be like less than $5. Yeah, I mean, because that's the way it was when we were growing up.
Yeah, $1.50 each. No, I totally get you. And I have paid some expensive hotel rooms before. And these were like $550 a night or something like that,
Jeez.
And that was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get that deluxe, whatever.
See, I think that's one of the dumbest things one could spend money on, by the way.
Is a hotel room?
Because it's just a bed and a toilet.
Mostly. Although for me,
I mean, there's a difference between super shitty rooms.
Sure, yeah.
I agree.
That
have like blood stains on the floor.
Past the If you're in a 4-star room that costs you $170, you're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
You know, everything past that is just superfluous.
Right. It's just fancier sheets that don't really do anything.
Right.
So
But
she
7,000.
So this is a woman who doesn't have any money. So even if she hadn't spent any money by that point, I think they went for, I don't know, 10 days or something.
Oh my God.
Just for the private villa alone. So somehow as she's leaving, they start hitting her up for the bill. And at this point,
it's like what, 70 grand plus all the food plus everything's
Yeah.
easily another 100 grand.
right. I don't know how much it was
Yeah.
and how long it was, but at least $7,000. And a friend of hers said that she had a bunch of credit card numbers, not just credit cards, but numbers of credit cards.
Okay.
So I don't know where she got all these mysterious credit card numbers. And she would just like rattle off different numbers, and then
Oh my God.
they would start to be declined over time, this friend would observe. And then she would just start making other people pay for it. And she said, I'll pay you back.
I wonder if those credit card numbers she had like stolen from people, like she had written them down.
Right. From other rich people. So that's the other thing. So when she first started doing this, when she would sort of shove her bills onto other people, because she had risen to such a high level in the echelon of rich people. In fact, she hired a trainer that was, I think, thousands of dollars per session.
Oh my God.
Something like that. And got introduced to other rich people. She actually became friends with the trainer.
How much can you train for $1,000?
But that's this world. So she was around other super rich young people, and when she would give the bill to them because she couldn't pay, they wouldn't notice because they were so rich. They would just be like, okay, I guess I'll pay. You'll get me back? Okay, sure. It'd sort of be like if you and I went to Denny's and the bill was $25 and I was like, can you get it?
Wallet.
Like, you wouldn't remember necessarily.
Right.
Well, that's what the world she was in. But some of the people were remembering because they didn't have that kind of.
Oh my God.
And so they start actually realizing, wait, so you can't pay for this? Like you're actually that poor? And so,
by the way, a quick aside, in high school, and this was up here in this country, me and my friend Ron and my friend Eric would often go out to eat, like maybe on a Friday night or Saturday, whatever. Let's say we were at Denny's, in fact, and we're eating. The thing is, they would say, hey, do you want to go out? My friend Ron might say, do you want to go with me and Eric? We're going to go grab some food. I'm like, absolutely. I would never say no. And we go over. But the thing is, I rarely ever had money because this was like before I was working a job.
Oh.
And I only got like $10 allowance or something, and I probably already spent it. So I was like, absolutely. And I would go to eat dinner with them, knowing full well I have not a cent in my pocket. And we would finish the meal, and then I'd be like, hey, could you guys pay for me this time? And then they'd be like, again? Like, we're always paying for you. I'm like, I know, I just don't have the money. And like, oh my gosh, we're going to make you wash dishes one of these times. And then of course, when I finally started working and making money, then I would gladly pick up but it was hilarious because it was a pattern. I don't know how many times, but where I would regularly go and they'd be like, if you knew you had no money, why'd you come? And I'm like, I just wanted to come,
It's funny. I can totally see you doing that because you have serious FOMO about things.
Right.
But I've never known you not to have money.
Right. So like this was in high school. You
Yeah.
know?
And by the way, me and my friends were so poor that that would have happened. Fool me once, shame on me, shame on you. Fool me twice, that's all.
That's
so
it.
we would never have let that go. Like we were so poor, me and my friends. I mean, we weren't poor, but
Like you didn't have spending cash.
right.
Like
Our
that.
families had money, but we certainly didn't have any cash. And because this is back in the day when, I don't know, in the late 80s, to get an allowance was actually kind of rare.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I heard, one of my friends got paid for his grades. He got like $20 for every A he got. And I remember just being astounded by that.
My brother had that.
Yeah.
He got every A got a $20 bill.
Yeah.
My little brother. Oh, and when he went to the dentist, every tooth that didn't have a cavity, $20.
Oh my God.
So he'd walk out with like these hundreds of dollars. I had like a $10 allowance.
Yeah.
And
well, just a side note on this. So I had a 75-cent allowance when I was a kid, when I was like, 6, 7 years old, 8 years old. And at a certain point, I stopped. My dad, I would always go up to my dad and say, okay, it's time for allowance. And he would give me 3 quarters. And I, at some point, just stopped asking for money because I don't know, I didn't really need it or something.
Right.
Fast forward like 2.5 years, I suddenly start thinking, I think I want to start buying things. And I thought, well, I haven't actually got my allowance in a while. And so I sat down with pen and paper, and I figured out how much my dad owed me.
Oh my God.
And it was something like, would just be like 200 times 75 cents. So it's $150 or something, 150 bucks ish. So I went to my dad and I said, you owe me $150 because, I'm here to collect. And to me, it all made sense.
Right.
It's like, well, you're a bank and I just haven't withdrawn.
Right.
And so I went and I thought my dad was going to be like, okay, good job. And I thought he was going to my parents laughed harder than I've ever heard them laugh. They were like, no. And I felt so defeated because I thought, well, so you're saying that if I just would have collected all these...
Oh my God.
It just felt so unfair to me. But anyway.
Oh my God. That's hilarious. I wonder how often that happens to kids.
Yeah. Well, but me and my friends were so poor. Another side note of the first side note is we would go to a Mexican... And I feel bad for the restaurants now, but we were 17. We would go to the Mexican restaurant in Factoria.
Yeah.
There's like a Mazatlan or Azteca or something there. And we would go in, 4 of us, we'd sit down at a booth, and they always bring chips, right?
Oh, yeah.
Chips and salsa. And he'd be like,
oh my God.
Do you know what you want yet? And we'd be like, no.
Not yet.
And we'd polish off the chips and salsa. They'd come back again.
Oh my God.
Man, now I want chips and salsa. But anyway, we'd finish they just keep bringing it, right?
Oh yeah, because they keep bringing more.
And then at the very last possible, most awkward moment, one of us would order the cheapest thing. We wouldn't.
You would actually order?
Yeah, we'd order.
Oh wow!
But
I thought you were criminals.
It'd be like a $6, appetizer.
Sure.
And we eat that, and then we'd walk out.
And you'd split it.
Yeah, but we'd be full, man, because we got like a full thing. Yeah.
The bag load of chips and salsa.
Yeah. Anyway,
That's
so
hilarious.
So this woman at around the same age is walking around paying $35,000 for a private jet. So at this point, she's completely run out of money. She owes money to the banks. She owes tens of thousands of dollars to a number of expensive hotels.
Jeez, man.
And she owed money to the private jet company. The total amount was about $275,000.
What? Oh my God.
So that's horrible, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's like kind of normal for a student loan, by the way.
Well, sure, but you got an education out of it.
But still, so to me, when I first saw this number, I thought, wow, that's a lot of money. But then I started thinking about it. Donald Trump spent $13 million of our tax money for 4 trips to Mar-a-Lago in 1 month.
Yeah.
1 month for a trip that he does not need to be doing. Now, I know all the presidents do these kinds of expensive trips.
Yeah.
So this is an indictment on any president who spends this kind of money.
Right.
$13 million
this is peanuts
of our tax dollars. You and me, Humberto, we pay for Donald Trump and his entourage to just pick up and go to Mar-a-Lago 4 times a month.
And I'll gladly do it again. MAGA! Oh, wait, what is it now? KAGA! KAGA!
So that's 1 month, okay? That's not, that's not like over the span of, that's just 1 month. So imagine when you actually times that by 12 months, times that by 4 years. McFarlane and Ja Rule are being sued for $100 million.
Right.
Bernie Madoff scammed people out of how much, do you think?
Wasn't it like 65 million or something?
15 billion.
Wait, hold on. Stop.
Bernie Madoff
stop.
was on colossal levels.
Billion?
Yeah. So
$1 billion.
Yes.
$15 billion.
So Anna Delvey she just took a loan out for $100,000. Two, all the money that she owed were to people who basically stupidly let her have the product before charging her.
Yeah.
And that's a rich person tricking you. Do you know what I mean? Like when someone comes in to a McDonald's, you don't say, I'll gladly pay you for 2 burgers on Thursday to get 1 burger today.
Yeah, let's not forget, the poor people don't get the burger before they've paid.
Right.
You pay,
right,
and then you get your burger.
So if you're a fancy restaurant or a fancy hotel and you're just believing people, I feel like that's on you, motherfucker.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, now, as the customer, you lied.
Yeah.
But to me, it's like, I don't know. It doesn't feel as criminal as Bernie Madoff or McFarlane or even Donald Trump.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's still criminal, but certainly it's nowhere near as egregious. Quick question about Madoff. What happened to the $15 billion?
I don't know the full story.
Jeez.
Okay. He had a Ponzi scheme, right?
Yes. Now, your point though being, we can't easily group these as like, yep, they're all the same people.
Right. So I don't know if right. And that's my point is like, how many people, is, what's her face? Is Lena Dunham going to make a movie about Bernie Madoff?
Right.
No one's interested in Bernie Madoff, but all these people are fascinated with Anna Delvey, the person who is probably one of the least lucrative, more shortest, living con artist. And right now there's probably dozens of people in Manhattan alone who are way more criminal, inside trading,
right.
People who scam the government, contractors, da-da-da.
And the tragic part of this is just going to reward her behavior, right? Because
she's famous.
She's famous and rich now as a result of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because she's, I'm sure, going to have to get paid for the rights, right?
Yep. So she's selling a book.
She's going to get
two books.
A shit ton of money, right? And the fame, more fame that she probably ever thought she was going to get. Because she was going to be famous just within that little circle.
Yeah.
Right? This is like worldwide fame.
Right. She couldn't have asked for a better outcome.
And so what is the lesson? Why not do this?
Right. Well, we'll get into that. So she gets arrested 2 years ago and for not paying her bills, essentially, and for lying about her finances. She gets charged with grand larceny and a bunch of other charges. Larceny is one of those words you don't hear very often. Like, do they have just small larceny, or is it always grand larceny?
It's pretty grand when you do it.
She was offered a plea deal for 1 year in prison, which she didn't take, which indicates to me low IQ.
A plea deal?
Yeah.
She didn't take a plea deal?
No.
Oh, my God.
She goes to trial. She goes to trial, convicted 4 to 12 years in state prison. And
oh, my God.
How do you feel about her getting prison time?
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm just shocked. I didn't realize that she turned down a plea deal.
Yeah. Well, in the report I saw, she said she waited too long and then it lapsed the deadline. But to me, that says you just didn't take it.
Yeah.
And I think she says that because she feels stupid for not taking it.
Of course.
She's ordered to pay a $24,000 fine.
It does, by the way, it does potentially point at like a little bit of, or a lot of delusion maybe.
Yeah.
Like where she literally might have been like either convincing herself that she really didn't do anything wrong or that she could easily beat the case or something.
Right, like Ted Bundy.
Yeah.
So she's ordered to pay a $24,000 fine and ordered to pay restitution of close to $200,000. And after being released, she might be deported to Germany. And
why Germany?
Because that's where she came from.
Oh, so she was Russian, but she came from Germany.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is this the immigrants that Trump was trying to keep out? It's just one of the questions I have.
No, because these are wealthy immigrants. It's fine, even though she's not, and she's scamming
us. So she goes to prison, and she's already been disciplined 13 times for infractions in prison, which apparently is kind of unusual.
Wow.
Including a few weeks in solitary.
Jeez, what is going on?
So when you look at pictures of her, I have a hard time picturing that.
Yeah.
But
She's got the glasses now.
So
got these big glasses.
That's interesting to me because when you're in prison, what do you get out of 13 infractions?
Yeah.
I'm really curious what the infractions
I wonder
are.
if there's drugs involved, like she's addicted, maybe.
Well, I don't think that would explain
Well, if she's trying to get at least illicit drugs and she's gotten them and gotten in trouble or something.
Oh, I see.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I think it has more to do with her talking back to people, her being oppositional. It was because she actually talked about how she was getting in trouble a lot too. Anyway, she's writing a couple books, one book about her con artist days and another book about her days in prison. After getting released, she says she's going to pursue reforming the criminal justice system, which I find to be just so kind of trite in some way.
It's like OJ finding the killer.
Yeah. And she wants to go into AI, which I'm just like...
She wants to go into artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Reform the prison system and go into artificial intelligence.
Right. So this is, when we get into her personality, this is starting to point towards narcissism. A young person who hasn't been to college, who has or barely been, she's been to fashion college. She wants to reform the criminal justice system. She wants to go into AI.
Go into AI.
Like, what does that even mean?
I'm going to go into AI.
Yeah. And she wants to go into finance. So,
it's a lot of interest.
In all likelihood, she'll get a reality TV show deal and she'll be just like the Kardashians. Oh, man. I'd watch an episode of that. Okay, so she gets interviewed. So this is when we really get a picture of, who she is. So there's a couple of interviews that I was pulling from. So one of the things is, she says, the thing is, I'm not sorry, she says. I'd be lying to you and to everyone else and to myself if I said I was sorry for anything. I regret the way I went about certain things. She claims that she always intended on paying everyone back, which I think could be possible. Could be part of that delusion of just
sure. Like, she's like, as soon as I am the millionaire I claim to be, sure, I'll kick back some money.
Right. She admitted to lying, but only because she was being pressured by investors to produce.
Oh, okay. Well, sure. I only lied because they were asking me where the body was buried.
Well, and again, so it's possible from her deluded, narcissistic perspective that she was getting pressured to produce, and she's like, okay, yeah, I've got tons of money, because she's thinking, well, eventually it's going to be true, and everyone will be fine.
And there is this fine line that we have discussed before, which is the fake it till you make it,
right,
that does end up paying out for some people.
Right.
And so people see that and they're like, well, I guess I got to do that. But that fine line, unfortunately, just like other things in life, delves into the illegal territory as well.
Right. The analogy I thought of was that all musicians start out acting like they're like they're gods.
Right.
Like when you're trying to be famous as a rock band or a rapper or something, right, you don't necessarily admit that you don't have an agent and you don't have a contract and you just record in your basement and you don't like yourself. I mean, some people do, but a lot of people don't. And so what you do is you say, yeah, I've got gigs lined up. I have an agent. I'm big in Japan. You blow yourself up because it actually works. Because then when people hear that, then they're more likely to pay attention to you, which actually snowballs and cascades into more fame.
Yeah, the difference is when you start doing things like, so Dr. Dre has agreed to produce our album.
Right.
And we're actually going to feature Beyonce on it. And I'm opening for Paul McCartney next week.
Or, Dr. Dre's people have expressed interest. That kind of lie.
Even worse, here is the signed letter of intent from Dr. Dre.
Right. So she said she liked the attention from rich men. She said, I really liked getting, I don't know how she worded it, but she essentially said that she really liked getting attention from rich men.
Well, that one's a little puzzling to me because she didn't need to pretend to be wealthy in order to get attention from rich men.
But man, the fast route to attention, if you're a rich young woman who has a big idea,
with the idea, like that, sure. So all of a sudden you're like, look, here's what I want to do. And
but even if you're just rich, you go into a fancy party, again, okay, Anna Delvey walks in, no rumors about her, to a party of 25 people at a cocktail party. And then scenario 2, Anna Delvey walks in, and the rumor is she flew in on a private jet.
Yeah.
Okay, so how many people are going to at least want to talk to her and get to know her story?
Well, but what I'm trying to say is, I get that for the average person, but if you're a wealthy man that maybe flew in on a private jet too, maybe owns a private jet, then that's not as impressive.
I think it still is. I don't think it's as impressive, but I think it means that you still are more interested in talking to. Let's do the reverse. Anna Delvey walks in obviously a shitty dress, and everyone knows that she's a waitress at the restaurant down the street.
Yeah, she's the waitress you want because you are so rich and powerful. You can kind of get any woman, including this one.
Rich people hang out with rich people. Rich people love to.
But you're forgetting cute women that talk themselves into the right situations end up attaching themselves to these rich.
They might like to talk to her, but not necessarily like really hang out. There's a certain thing, like it's sort of like actors who marry other actors. There's a certain thing of like you're at my class, you're in my level, and so I'm going to pay attention.
I don't think it works the same way for guys. I think that's hence the term trophy wife.
Tell me one famous person you know who actually married.
But it's different with famous people.
Okay,
I'm talking about wealthy.
A wealthy man who married a absolutely different class woman.
So I don't know wealthy men, but if I did, I'd probably have dozens of examples. Because
I don't think so.
Because it's like they see a beautiful woman at the party.
I think
and that's how they get them because they're wealthy.
That's the stereotype. But people tend to marry their class. People want to be. Well, I'm
not certainly they're not going to be driving down the streets and see someone ragged on the street, be like, "Hey, you!" But even so, the girl had to be at the party. So the classes weren't so different that they weren't at the same party. But the one girl might be just out of college and just starting the thing, and the other dude is a successful doctor who makes $500,000 a year.
Anecdotally, and I guess I would have to look at the research if there is any. My experience is, if we're just sticking to rich, privileged men, they tend to marry, at the very least, close to their class in the women that they date and the women that they marry. Anyway, so she liked the attention of rich men, and she said, my motivation was never money. She said she was power hungry. That's interesting, right?
Yeah.
The quote was, I was power hungry. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I wonder what that was about, because she wanted power to be influential and have this foundation and be able to call the shots. And so, but why? Like, I wonder what it was. Did she feel powerless all her life? That's very curious.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's no way to know, and I'll get into my total speculation in a second, but I think that's an interesting data point. She said she never told anyone she was rich. They just assumed it. That seems unlikely to me, but it's possible. She said, quote, I was never trying to be a socialite. I had dinners, but they were work dinners. I wanted to be taken seriously. So this is a little peek into her personality, that she wasn't necessarily, according to her, which we have to take with a grain of salt, she wasn't actually interested in being a socialite, because that's the way she's being described. This con artist works her way into the social scene. To her, according to her, she was like, I was never interested in being in the social scene. I was interested in being taken seriously as a businesswoman.
Oh, great. Well, this will be a nice, boring movie then, because the scenes will be like, oh, I'm just trying to talk to you about my foundation. And
it's like, okay, well then why are you going to Morocco in these like Instagram-y kinds of...
Why are you flying in on a private plane? Yeah. Come on.
Yeah. She also said, this is interesting, quote, I'm not a good person.
Okay, fair enough. She's self-aware.
That's interesting. So to me, again, hard to say because I'm reading it in an article, that there's probably some deep shame. Someone shamed her growing up in all likelihood.
But I mean, she's being completely contradictory, because she's saying, I'm not going to apologize. I don't think I have anything to apologize for. But I'm not a good person, and I do regret some of the things. It's like, come on.
Yeah. So when you have shame, it leads to self-sabotage. At the baseline, you believe you're not good enough. And it's not just something that's kind of there. It's repeatedly going on in your mind. When you are walking around with that level of shame, it's something that it's a companion with you everywhere you go. Everything you do, whenever your brain kind of slows down, instantly you just start thinking like, I'm a piece of shit for whatever thing that you feel ashamed about. Then you start to try to defend against that somehow. And there's various different ways you can defend. One way is through drugs and alcohol, and there's various other ways. And another way is you basically start to convince yourself that you're awesome and that you deserve things.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, in order to not feel the shame anymore, I need to be cool like those people that are higher than me who, from my perspective, clearly aren't ashamed of anything. You know, they clearly must go to sleep at night fully, satisfied with their lives.
Sure.
I want to be like that. It's sort of like when Anthony Bourdain killed himself. A lot of people are like, well, he had everything. Why would he do that? That whole sentiment is based on this notion that if you're rich and famous, you're happy.
Right.
And being rich and famous has nothing to do with happy. There are people who live off $1 a day in, southern Mexico, and they're blissful every day.
Yeah.
And happiness has nothing to do with those things. I mean, certain things, like if you have no health care and no food and no shelter, certainly. But, when you have the basics. So she looks at those people that are higher than her, and she's like, okay, that's what I'm going to go for. Well, how am I going to get there? Well, I have to believe that I deserve it. And so I'm going to believe I deserve it. But it's a thin defense right below that very thin membrane of like, I deserve it. I'm going to do this thing, is just this sea of shame. But she acts from that defense, and that's what she puts out there. And eventually that comes crashing down, which, happens to people. And then boom, it's, see, I'm not good enough.
Right.
I'm a terrible person. Boom. Back to the defensive reaction. I'm the best in the world. Surely I'm in prison, but who cares? I'm gonna make it big. And so, now she was asked by a reporter if you would do the same things again, and guess what she said?
Yes.
Yeah, she said yes, probably so. But she also laughed, so I don't know what she meant by it. Anyway, so here's my total speculation about her progression. Again, everything I have to go off of is just stuff on the internet, and we'll probably know more later when Lena Dunham tells the story. But anyway, so I think up until the point when she was running out of money in Manhattan, I think she was legit. I think everything she was doing was just regular life. She wanted to get a career in the fashion industry, and I think she had big dreams, like a lot of young people did.
Yeah.
And but she started running out of money, and due to a number of reasons, she didn't think she could achieve her dreams in the normal way. Because there's plenty of people who have big dreams, like I want to have an exclusive mall.
Sure.
Well, what regular people think is, okay, I've got to get an internship job. I've got to start the long game of figuring out venture capitalism and maybe owning a small shop. And then proving myself,
build connections.
Way. By the time I'm 50, maybe I'll be there. But so for whatever reason, she either wanted to do it too fast, or she didn't think she'd actually ever achieve it. And to be a young woman from Russia, you've got to know that one, you're at a deficit because you're a woman in our society. You're at a deficit because of racism against Russians. One of the things that Americans don't necessarily identify with is that Russians are oppressed in Europe. Like a lot of British people look down on Russians. Not all of them, obviously, but to me, the way that a lot of Western European people talk about Russians and Polish people is the way that Americans talk about Mexicans. It's a similar kind of vibe that I hear them talk about. And to me, I'm just like, well, aren't you all just white people from Europe? But there's different classes of white nationalities in Europe that we don't, especially out here in Seattle, don't really feel. And so I think there could have been another part of that. Plus, when she moved to Germany from Russia, she had to learn how to speak German. I don't know if she had some kind of complex around that change for her.
Right.
And of course, ageism. She's young. She looks young. She looks like she could be 14 years old in some pictures. And so maybe that was a thing. I don't know. And she's got to be on the psychopathic spectrum.
Sure.
So she clearly did. And by psychopathic spectrum, I mean someone who doesn't have the same care about rules of society and doesn't necessarily care about other people's feelings. Doesn't really mind lying to people as much as other people do. So she doesn't mind breaking the rules. She doesn't seem to have much remorse, because for me, like because I've been in situations like this before, I think all of us have, where someone walks away from a party with the wrong impression of me, even if it's a good impression.
Right.
Like someone walks, like one example that just popped in my head was back when I didn't have a doctorate and I just had a master's. I was a master's level clinician. I was very good at my job. I wasn't any worse than someone with a doctorate, but people would sometimes think I was a doctor. So they'd say, oh, Dr. Honda. And sometimes I wouldn't bother with correcting them because it would feel weird to be like, no, wrong, you're wrong. It's like, I'll just let it go. But it always would bother me because I was like, well, God, that person's now walking. I didn't say anything. So now I'm kind of culpable in this lie. Yeah. And it would really get to me to the point where sometimes I would reach out to them. And by the way, you called me doctor. I just want to let you know I don't have a doctorate.
And they'd be like, okay.
Right.
Who is this?
Right. So for her, she did this over and over and over again, and flat out lied to people.
And never made those calls.
And never cared. That's a different kind of a person.
Yeah.
She's also good at manipulating people and doesn't have problem manipulating people.
And she's okay with risk, just like
right.
Like she's riding all this stress that would kill someone.
Yeah.
Imagine like the stress of, I owe like $200,000 in unpaid bills.
Yeah.
They're coming after me.
Yeah. I mean, I know people that when they buy a house in Seattle, fully knowing 99% sure that the house is going to appreciate anyway, that when they sign on that dotted line for that home loan of $400,000, it is massively stressful for them.
Oh, yeah.
They're just, and for some people, they're like, I can't do it.
Totally.
I don't want to be beholden. So for her, again, that risk that a psychopath takes. Now, so I want to start a new tradition on this podcast, Berto. That
Sweet.
We analyze, the listeners always want us to analyze a lot of psychopaths.
Okay.
So I want to start working on our own Psychology in Seattle psychopath scale.
Oh, our own rating system. Okay.
So it's the PSPS.
PSPS.
Psychology in Seattle Psychopathic Scale. PSPS is out of 10. So if Charlie Manson is a 10, Bill Cosby is 9 or 10, Harvey Weinstein is 9 or 10, 8 or 9 or something. And this isn't by behavior, because obviously Charlie Manson killed people.
It's not about how many murders or something.
But it's the extent at which you lack remorse and empathy to do what you did. What Bill Cosby and Harvey Weinstein did, you have to lack empathy in a big way to do what you did. Same with Charlie Manson. So what number would we give Anna Delvey?
I guess based on what we know, I would go with maybe a 7.
Wow. I would not say that. I mean,
hold on. Give me an example of a 5.
Well, so if you're anywhere on the spectrum, like you and I are probably a 2.
Okay.
Because you and I don't mind breaking society's rules sometimes. We don't like lying to people. Yeah. We don't like conning people, obviously. We're very sorry if we hurt someone's feelings. But when you and I are at a party and no one's talking about anything interesting, we don't mind saying, what do people think about dildos?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you and I don't mind breaking those rules. And you have to be slightly psychopathic to do that. Yeah. To be a therapist, some people argue, you have to be slightly psychopathic because it's not within normal social mores to be a therapist, to ask people very detailed questions. To be a podcaster, you have to be slightly narcissistic, slightly psychopathic. So I would say you and I are like a 2.
Right.
Now, someone that's a 5, I would say, well, like Billy well, I don't know. Let's just figure out the scale ourselves. So you're saying 7.
Well, I'm questioning it because of your reaction.
Yeah, because it seems a lot higher to me. Because to me, a 7
go ahead.
Would be someone who was much more noticeably. I mean, maybe we need to figure out a 7, person. Like Elizabeth Holmes is higher than Anna Delvey, but definitely nowhere near Charlie Manson or Bill Cosby.
I don't know about that.
I do.
Well,
I think,
based on what?
Well, the pattern, again, it's all from internet
But
information.
she lies without compunction.
But again, she lies in a way that is slightly psychopathic.
Yeah.
But it's not like Bill Cosby lying and saying, I'm giving you this drink and I need you to drink it. It just has alcohol in it. And I didn't just rape you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like those kinds of lies are, because lying in the business world, as we talked about in Elizabeth Holmes' episode, is par for the course.
Yeah.
So,
well, but okay, fair enough. But so I see a difference, for example, between the fire dude and Elizabeth Holmes. Like I would rate him lower than her,
right?
Because when you see him talking, there's still this semblance of someone that's trying to do okay,
right?
Trying to do good, but he just can't help himself. He's got to resort to these big, tall tales.
Right. So if you're like Billy McFarland, which I would say he's probably more like a 4 or something, that he's psychopathic enough that he does not mind lying straight up to people's faces. But in the back of his mind, he has a justification, which is, I'll get them the money eventually.
Yeah.
So that requires what I would call like a 4. And I think that Anna Delvey's like a 3 or a 4.
I would put her higher than the McFarlane guy.
Oh, would you?
Yeah, because even though money-wise it was peanuts, it's more like the McFarlane guy has done stuff. He's done business pieces.
True.
And so he's not coming at it like, look, I am bluffing from 0 to 100.
Right.
He's bluffs on top of bluffs, but some of those things have worked out. And then,
well, and the Fire Festival could have worked if he had better advisors.
Yes, and if he had listened more and
Yeah.
stuff. Whereas she really was lying completely, forging documents, all these kind of things.
Right.
But they're close. So maybe if he's a 4, I'd give her a 5. Then
Well,
maybe
then
I'd downgrade her from a 7.
I want to give room in the upper ranges because to me, there's a lot of people who are not Bill Cosby and Charlie Manson who are pretty bad. And I want to do that because I wanted to, the reason why I even came up with this as I was thinking about Anna Delvey was that the word psychopath will be thrown around a lot with her name.
Yeah.
And what I want to educate people about is that, okay, she did some psychopathic things, but on the scale of psychopathy, she's actually kind of low.
Sure.
Now, it gets weird when we're talking about the behaviors that get you there. Now, maybe in the future, we'll see her exhibit more, cruel behavior towards other people. Maybe we'll start learning that she would pluck out the eyes of her hamsters when she was a kid.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll learn from her close friends that she was vindictive and would try to harm them. That's something like with Elizabeth Holmes, when people got in her way, reportedly, allegedly, she would engage in massive bullying campaigns with them, where she would try to scare them.
Yep.
With almost like physically.
Yeah.
And people were scared for their careers and kind of their lives at some point with Elizabeth Holmes. Whereas with Fire Festival guy and Anna Delvey, no one would post that.
Yeah, I might go 4 for him, 5 for Anna Delvey, and like 6 or 7 for Elizabeth Holmes.
Okay.
Now, I will say, I don't think Bill Cosby can be, like, I think for example, if we were considering all the other aspects of psychopathy, like Bill Cosby was extremely successful in many aspects of his life. He had quote unquote normal relationships with a lot of other people and things like this. Whereas like Manson is a train wreck through and through, like no normal relationships, complete, so there's got to be some gap between them still. Like, so maybe I'd put 8 on Cosby and still 10 on Manson or something. Okay.
But
anyways,
I can see that.
All right.
So again, to review, I think when she was starting to run out of money, she has big dreams and she doesn't think she can get there the normal way. And she's on this psychopathic spectrum and she starts to actually try to figure out, she starts to scheme, and she's not sophisticated or perhaps smart enough devise a scheme that actually worked. Because for every Anna Delvey that makes it that goes to prison, there's 99 other Anna Delveys who actually succeed.
Well, because absolutely to your point, it was big enough. She already lied and defrauded the bank to get $100,000, right? But her plan for $100,000 was clearly non-existent.
Right. Well, she got meetings with people.
Yeah.
And according to some reports, and I'm skeptical of it, and I'm sure this will be the version that they'll tell in the story about her, because it's more interesting, is that she was very close to actually getting the deal for the $25 million investment to actually start this thing. Now, it probably would have failed after that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But according to the story, for some people, she was very close. So she spent the $100,000 on things, perhaps enough smart ways to actually get the right meetings with the right people.
I have direct experience with the kind of person that is very, very close at all times to the big one.
Right.
And that's the one that they're going to be able to pay me back and pay everyone back.
Right.
And they've been this close for years.
Totally.
It's just around the corner.
Totally. So she starts to pay attention. She starts to experiment, and she's like, okay, I'm going to make this happen. The fashion world career, that's a dead end job. I gotta really go for the gusto here. And she learns that no one takes you seriously unless you're somebody.
Sure.
I think that's something, if there's any kind of why in the road in the story they tell about her, I think that there's got to be a point where she goes, in order to get respect, you have to be quote unquote somebody.
Right.
You can't just be a person with a good idea.
Right.
You can't even necessarily just be rich. You have to be special. There has to be something special about you.
So she might have tried floating an idea here or there, and people are like, yeah, everyone's got ideas.
Yeah, whatever. But if you came in on a private jet and you have a big idea, then it's a different story.
Right.
And she learns to be somebody in our culture. You got to be rich. You got to know the right people. You got to wear the right clothes, and you got to act a certain way. And so she goes on a campaign to kind of change herself / trick everybody. And she acts rich by tipping everybody. And she goes to expensive hotels. She goes to expensive restaurants. She gets to know the right people. She goes to the right parties. She starts to, get to know influential people. Martin Shkreli, Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah.
And it starts to work. That's what's interesting is she started from nothing.
Right.
And actually got into the scene, got meetings with important people, got money. It's working. And she's like, wow, for the first time in my life, I'm getting respect. I feel optimistic about the future. And it, just starts to snowball and it gets out of control. And she thinks, all I have to do is just continue this success. I mean, look at me. I mean, every day she goes to bed going, Anna Delvey, good job. Yeah. You're making it. You're doing it. People respect you. They're listening to you. They want to talk to you. Because there was a time there that people were actually seeking her out. You know what I mean? And she's like, it's working. All I got to do is hold on long enough to get that dream of mine. And then I'll pay everyone back and then some.
Yeah.
And I'll have the power to, I don't care about money. I just got to get there.
By the way, our society, totally glorifies the good-hearted outlaws, right? So take the Ocean's 11.
Yeah.
And all that series, right? What are these people? These are career con men trying to defraud millions of dollars, steal, cheat, and all these kinds of things. Forgeries. Oh, we're going to pretend that we're this, that. Oh, awesome. Bravo. Oh, but they fooled the casino owner. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, what about the Fast and the Furious?
Yeah.
These kind-hearted, thieves, they steal with their cars, and it's so good.
In real life, you have Bonnie and Clyde.
Right.
Who murdered many, many people in cold blood, but most Americans loved them because they were stealing from the banks.
Yeah.
And
Billy the Kid, we glorify all these things.
And it's a very weird phenomenon in our culture. I don't really understand it.
Right. You would think that these would, evolutionarily speaking, you would think we'd be like, we cannot possibly glorify any of this because we don't want this.
Right.
Who wants someone showing up and defrauding everyone and shooting everyone?
In fact, a lot of people are comparing her to Catch Me If You Can.
Right.
That guy.
Which is also glorified, right?
Right. Another person who lied, I think, acted like he was flying airplanes when he couldn't.
Yeah.
Put millions of, hundreds of people's lives in danger. So, yeah, I mean, it's something about us that just loves that kind of story. And I think that it's, so, mobsters, you and I love, we love Sopranos.
Oh, those guys really outsmarted the cops this time.
But it's awful. And
it is.
And so I think it's great. Art is art. Entertainment's entertainment. But I want everyone to, when they're watching the Anna Delvey story, played by Jennifer Lawrence, make sure that you are watching it knowing that you are being told a particular version or spin or colorful nature of a story about someone who lied. Lying is wrong. Nobody should be lying. There are very few instances where lying where lying is neutral or even a good thing.
Yeah, like if you're asked whether you ate from the apple of knowledge of good and evil, say no. Yeah. That's the one time you should lie.
Because we'd still be living in Eden.
Yes.
So she lied. She cheated. And whatever she got out of it, she didn't deserve. And so many other people start from the bottom and work their way up, whatever ladder they're working up, without ever lying, without ever cheating, without ever manipulating. And no one's making fancy movies about those people.
Nope.
Now, I think the other reason why we like stories like this, which I haven't mentioned, is what?
That we like the bad person stories?
Yeah.
Because we want to live that life too or something.
What else, though? What's the other reason?
I mean, it's more interesting than something where nothing happened.
Schadenfreude.
Sure.
Oh,
I see. We want people to try to go for the moon and fail miserably because that's not us.
Right. So we enjoy the ride up because we can identify with them. Right. And then as soon as they go over the cliff, we distance ourselves from them and go, ha, 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 you deserve...
That's what you get. I mean, you made your bed.
Yeah.
And that's not me.
So Anna Delvey has all that kind of stuff. Final word on Anna Delvey, Berto.
Well, I think that I'm going to feel pretty awkward watching whatever they make about her because now I'm feeling like I'm exploiting our own culture. I think it is sad, though, and having related to some of the things that she went through, it is sad that so many of us feel that we have to pretend or we have to be or we have to overspend or actually damage our own finances or damage our own reputation or whatever just because we feel that that's the only way to be happy and fit in. And I wish it was really a lot more about just what you contribute honestly to the society, and that was more praised. And
certainly we have venues for that sort of praise, like Reddit. Every day or two, there's a post that's risen to the top of the front page of someone or a group of people who have picked up a shit ton of garbage. Have you seen this on Reddit?
No.
So
I saw, this must be where it comes from. So I've seen things like that on Dig that bubble up, like, they just took out all this plastics from the ocean,
or even just 10 people went to a beach and picked up a bunch of garbage. And so there are places where you can get positive attention, but because of our culture, we don't pay enough attention to things like that. I actually subscribe to a subreddit that is something like happy news or something, like nice things that people do in the world, because the vast majority of things that people do are good. The vast majority of things that people do are at the very least neutral, if not positive. Very few people do, and of the things that those few people do that are bad, very few of the things they actually do are bad.
Yeah.
And yet we focus so much on the bad.
Yeah, I wish there was like little sweepstakes, or I guess sweepstakes not the right thing. Imagine if instead of the lottery, right, there was something like the lottery, but where every time you reach some amount of time following the rules, not lying, and saving money, you get a nice bonus, just for that. That's all you got to do. You don't have to save the world, cure cancer, nothing. You just showed up,
to
society and did your part.
Sure, wealth distribution.
Exactly, redistribution.
That is the final part of a podcast recording for a organization called Psychology in Seattle. Thanks for joining us out there. Please attend to yourself because
you deserve it.